Welcome to East Anglia, where we're joined by a special group of meditators from all around the region who are coming together for the first time. They are all incognito explorers on a journey of inner discovery. As portrayed in the recent film The Dig, the hidden Sutton Hoo treasures from ancient times have come to light in the modern era. These mysterious treasures have laid buried for countless years, and their discovery is the find of a lifetime. In this program, we are going to travel around East Anglia to meet some travelers on their quest to unearth, dust down, and reveal the treasures of the human spirit that lie just beneath the surface of us all. They will share some of the inner treasures that have been of immense personal value in their everyday lives. We hope to inspire, intrigue, and ignite your own curiosity about the value of your own hidden treasures as we embark on this sacred journey of inner discovery. We start our journey in Ilford. Doubt, worry, and fear are like three dragons that we need to overcome in order to experience a happy mind that is free from negativity. It sounds ideal, but what about when we are experiencing challenges, problems, and hardships in our lives? Is it realistic to even think that we are able to free ourselves from these three? We meet Pankaj from Ilford, who discovered how thoughts can be an invaluable treasure. Through the practice of meditation, he discovered how to make his thoughts more elevated and powerful, and so Pankaj has gained a personal insight into how to overcome these three dragons and become free from unhelpful patterns of thinking. Understanding the power of thoughts has not only transformed his work life and relationships, but has also helped him manage life's challenges, such as overseeing a recent building project. He changed a potentially stressful situation into an opportunity, a chance to learn by stepping back, looking at the roots of the problem and discovering the method to rebuild his critical, fearful, thoughtful patterns into a positive and productive ones. The ability to create elevated and powerful thoughts is truly a remarkable inner treasure.
Everyone is looking for a good feeling. Everyone's looking for something that makes them feel good. When we go on holidays, when we buy any new things, or when we celebrate, or whatever we do, we're just looking for that nice, good feeling. Sometimes a warm feeling, sometimes a happy feeling. But all those feelings, it took me a long time to discover, comes from my thoughts. And guess what? A feeling of power is also a feeling. And what I discovered was that if I want to be strong, the only way I can be strong is if I look after my thoughts.
So I guess we can't see our thoughts, so we might neglect them. What is it that you're doing in your practice that you're looking after your thoughts exactly? Would you like to say a bit more?
I have to just look at what I'm thinking. It's like the food we are eating. When somebody gives us a plate in the front and says, there's your food, and we get it 3 times a day, 2 times a day, depends on how many times we want to eat. But once you get the plate in front of you, you get food right there, Now it's your choice to eat what you want to eat, and how much you want to eat. And it's the same, I feel, for thoughts, because it's like, how much and what do I want to think? If I have to look after my thoughts, I just have to look at them. It's like the food presented in front of me. But what to eat and what to not eat is my choice. Similarly, if I think that thought is not right for me, then I don't give it any power, so let it go. The thought has come, let it go. It's the food in front of me, I let it go.
What was the application on the recent building project you mentioned, and how did the power of thoughts help you to make that a journey of discovery rather than something that could have been stressful?
I was feeling that I'm getting challenges every day, because that's what life is made up of. Sometimes the challenging situations are higher than normal, which is what happened to me in the building project. But yeah, it just had a lot of challenges every day, because every day you've got to make a decision, and you've got different perspectives to handle, different people to deal with. And it was just, sometimes it could be a lot of challenges come at one time. And I think the power of thoughts, just like this, has helped me. Is if I get challenges from outside, I would just try and look within and say, what's the real problem that I am facing, not what the other person is projecting to me. And I try and deal with that problem within me. And then, when I come back with some solution which involves me doing something rather than, the builders doing something, then that's what I would focus on. And when I come back with a solution, I would come with a very neutral, very accepting proposition, and let all of us decide mutually what's the right thing for the project, rather than just what's right for me. And that's what I think helped me deal with that up and down of the journey that I went through. But it was a very interesting journey, and I've learned a lot from it.
That's a really nice point you mentioned, because the real problem, what you're saying, is not what's happening out there, but what is the feeling I've got in me and the attitude. And so then when we're reaching a harmony within ourselves about the situation, you could bring that out to unify and to sort of seek support and cooperation from the group. So it's interesting, if we come from our own space of rejecting the situation, we end up wanting to manipulate the external. So it's very clear and very helpful. Our journey now takes us north to Great Yarmouth. In the UK, approximately 1 in 4 women experience violence by an intimate partner, compared to 1 in 13 men. However, it is not just the physical damage, the emotional scars often take longer to heal. The most common emotional fallout from abusive relationships is loss of self-esteem. Women can be left feeling a shadow of their former selves, worn down by abusive comments that attack every aspect from their appearance to their personality. So what can be done about it, and can this damage ever be repaired? We meet Monica, who is a testimony to the fact that a return to full self-respect and happiness is possible. Having escaped an abusive 10-year marriage in Scotland, she fled with her young children and rebuilt her life in East Anglia. Through the practice of meditation, her inner treasure of self-respect and intrinsic worthiness was gradually revealed, and she came to realize that she didn't need anyone else to make her feel complete or secure. With the help of her spiritual study, she was able to move beyond the difficult memories, accept what had happened, and most importantly, discover a newfound purpose in life. That is, to remain aware of her true self-respect and to empower others to be able to do the same.
Well, I came down from Scotland with my 2 children on the train, and I lived with my parents for a while till I got a house in Thetford. And I started to rebuild my life, as you do, by getting a job and all of those everyday normal things that people expect to do. But still, there was this big pain inside that hadn't healed from the past. And it was only when I moved to Cambridge and I came across the meditation centre and I started learning about my inner self, that I could start rebuilding my inner self as well as my outer self, because it's very easy to put an outer mask on and behave in the way people expect you to behave, especially when you're in a job and you're expected to be professional and say the right things and do the right things, but you're hiding the pain inside. So when you get home and you have that time to reflect, and in meditation, this is what you're doing initially, is reflecting. You start to be able to look at the deeper aspects of yourself. And I think the first thing that was revealing to me was learning about my inner self, being a spiritual being, being a soul, that I was the soul, and within me were all those qualities that had been denied of me by the person I was living with. And to understand that I was a peaceful being, that I was a joyful, happy being, that I was powerful, that I did have power inside. And also I had a lot of love to give, and that love had been dashed in the past. But to know that I still had that love inside and I was still able to give that love was a joy to me. And that really started the process of healing for me. So I think one of the interesting things about my journey through meditation was to actually be able to look at both sides of the relationship dispassionately. It was almost like looking at it on a stage, as though I was watching a movie of 2 people that I was actually unrelated to, but knowing that one of them was me. And looking at the triggers that I caused that triggered the other person. So previously, I was in the usual blame game of it's the other person's fault, I'm the innocent party, a bit in the victim mode. But having been able to look at the thing through meditation dispassionately and see that I played a part equally and they reacted to the part that I played, that started the journey of discovering my traits that I could change, but also allowing that person to be who they were. Because I had the expectation that they would allow me to be who I was, which they didn't. But in the blame game, I was not allowing them to be who they were either. So that was a beautiful revelation that allowed me to let go a lot of what I've been hanging on to.
What advice would you give to someone who is maybe in a similar position or is wanting to really come back to discover this true self-respect, which you said is something that we all have, and all of us seeing ourselves as spiritual beings? What would you say to somebody who's beginning that journey?
I would say it's essential to look at yourself and to come away from the natural instinct to blame the other person, because as we blame, we experience the pain. As we blame, we live in the past. And in order to heal, we must move forward in our lives. So we build building blocks, tangible building blocks in our lives in order to get a home to live in, get a job to sustain ourselves, to look after our children, and so on. But we need to build those inner building blocks of resilience, of self-esteem, of self-belief again. So we have to start by looking at the self first, whereas the tendency is to look at the other person, but that locks you in the past. So to look at what I want for my future. Do I want to continue to be in pain? Do I want to continue to blame? Do I want to feel free to fully be the person that I am, to actually shine my light and shine my smile for others without fearing repercussions? So in order to do that, I have to look forward, move forward, and look at myself, because everything is being held within me and I have to release it. And the final release is actually to be able to forgive that person. But it was worthwhile because now I have nothing to hold on to in terms of the past. So I am now living in this moment in my present, in my self-esteem.
We now move south to Haverhill. Hearing the news today can often make us feel overwhelmed and powerless about the challenges we face in our modern world. Sometimes we question, what is my purpose in life? How can I make a difference? We meet Maggie Crompton from Haverhill in East Anglia, whose life purpose changed overnight. In the immediate aftermath of a car accident, she had a profound out-of-body experience in which she experienced such deep feelings of love and security that she knew she had discovered something of incredible value and power. Maggie soon put her newfound inner treasure into actions for the benefit of her community in different ways. One such project was at High Point Prison, just 6 miles from Haverhill. For many years, officers had been subjected to spates of riots and disturbances. After attending a prison staff retreat at Brahma Kumaris main centre in Willesden, the prison governor contacted Maggie to ask her to visit the prison and create an area of peace. This Maggie did. She transformed the space into a beautiful meditation room for everyone to take benefit.
That out-of-body experience wasn't an overnight thing. It was something that happened so that I would wake up. It was a wake-up call. And once I had that wake-up call, everything in my world changed. Everything. Relationships, connections, my work, everything changed. And I had to start all over again. It was like being a baby. I had to relearn. I went to the meditation center in Jersey that was there at the time, because my friend at work said, you're going for an operation, you're really going to have to be very unstressed, and I would advise you to go and learn meditation. And as soon as I walked in the door, I was only there a few moments, when the whole feeling of the place took me immediately back to the experience. I had to come to the meditation center, which was Brahma Kumaris meditation center. And that was it. That was the beginning of my sacred journey. And what that was spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge is an incredible healer.
Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying. Sometimes the first the experience, but we don't know what it is. So we find a treasure, but there's nothing, we don't know how to verbalize. Or so it sounds like you had the experience and then you were looking to understand what that experience was, knowing it was profound. And then you're saying you found the answer to it through the understanding of the teachings of Brahma Kumaris.
Yes.
So would you like to say in essence what that understanding is, and from your experience, from what you took?
Well, there was a young girl who was there outside the centre. She had walked us up to the car park. And she said, there's something, Maggie, you're not saying. You've come and, had a little bit of meditation and it was wonderful, but I was still feeling this desperate feeling inside. Oh, they're not going to tell me what I need. And all of a sudden, this young girl turned around and said, tell me what it is. And I, without even thinking, I said, I'm looking for knowledge. She said, oh, right, okay, tell me why you're looking for knowledge. So I very quickly gave her my experience, just in those few moments standing there. And she said, well, of course you had the experience. You were meant to have the experience. Do you know, even after 33 years, I still feel that deep, powerful emotion that I had that day when this happened, when this happened to me. It brings tears to my eyes. It just fills me with that amazing experience, which was just, well, there's no words to describe it really. But anyway, her words were what did it. I think these words were so beautiful. She said, of course you had the experience. You were meant to have the experience, because there is two energies in this world. There is physical energy and there is spiritual energy. And you had the experience of the separation of those energies. Because to have such a profound, deep experience, you would have to have been separated. So the consciousness was separated from the physical body to enable you to be pulled up there to see what you saw, have the experience, and come back. There had to be the separation. So I realized after reading many other stories that it wasn't a just near-death, out-of-body experience. This was me after sitting on a cliff in Jersey 3 days previously, sobbing my heart out, begging God, if you're out there, can you please help me? I don't know what is happening to me. I just need some help. And 3 days later, I got it. Well, I got the beginning of it. And it's now after all these years, I realize why I had to have that experience, because it's been my living, loving and learning process in all these years.
Thank you so much for sharing. And actually, out-of-body experiences are not so rare. And in the way you described it, and the understanding of, as was said a little earlier with Monica, that we are spiritual beings. This seems to reunite us with something which is so profoundly free from the limitation of circumstance that it's uplifting us in a immediate way, that we can come back with so much power to fulfill whatever responsibilities with lightness. It would be lovely to hear a bit about your association. I know you've been involved in many community projects, but one of those being High Point Prison. It'd be nice to hear a bit about your work there.
Yes, as you said, the governor came to the Dignity in Prison programme, and then I'd gone to the prison. And he said, okay, I would want that feeling of peace in my prison that I experienced at your global house. So he took me through this gate, and all of a sudden there was this old Cat D unit, which is category D, which was prisoners who lived outside, really. And it was in a terrible state. Monica knows, we pulled sinks out, pulled pipes out. You would not believe what we did there to do it. But yes, with everybody's cooperation, it ended up a very beautiful area. Now, the main reason for that was to enable us to actually reach out as well into the prison for the prisoners, because this was for the prison staff. There'd been many riots, many disturbances, which was really quite bad. They were weekly. And all of a sudden, everything just seemed to quieten down, because the officers had more power to be able to deal with it, because they were meditating as well. They would come to the meditation room. So we then went into the prison to the prisoners. And the wonder of that is that 4 of the prisoners from the groups that we took have remained out of prison. They've stayed out of the system. They never went back in. And I'm in touch still with 2 of them who are really amazing young men within their community.
Now we visit Chelmsford. Sometimes life throws up situations where our action or inaction causes us to experience guilt and remorse, sending us into a spiral of if only or what if only I had acted differently. Such recriminations weigh heavily, and so they can ultimately affect our ability to function well in life. Neil Jordan from Essex experienced just this in 1994, when after a shocking turn of events, his best friend was murdered. He had reached out for help only a week earlier. Neil was haunted by guilt and remorse, which he says stayed beneath the surface of his mind for many years. However, after being introduced to the art of meditation, he discovered and developed the inner treasure of courage, which helped him to face the self. With practice, he gradually gained the power to stop the blame game. He found the power to stop endlessly distracting himself with limited pleasures, such as drinking or losing himself in his work. He had found the hidden jewel of courage, which enabled him to resist and stop the self-defeating spiral of negativity, to understand its roots and move on.
As it was mentioned, my best friend was murdered in '94. I didn't know that I partly blamed myself for that, for the lack of help that I didn't give him the week before. And that took 23 years for me to fully understand that and for it to emerge. Now, I'd been meditating for years, for about 15 years before that. So it was almost like the 15 years of the meditation prepared the ground for this to be revealed to me. And then I bumped into an old friend. He showed me a photo that I'd never seen of all of us in this photo of when I was like 16 years old. And it just triggered it all. And then I kept getting upset. And then the next day I was getting upset, and I was saying to my wife, like, what is wrong with me? Like what is going on here? And then the more I thought about it, and what I'd learned through the meditation and the knowledge that I'd received over the previous 15 years, was able to understand the source where this was all coming from. This was 4 years ago, 2017, about 4.5 years ago. So since then, and I have to do less work on it now, because I feel I've kind of worked through it. But back then, it was about allowing it to enter my mind, but I was able to not get emotional about it with the emotions that I'd suppressed over those years. Instead, I was able to separate that and then look at it rationally. And then I was able to break it down with logic, and kept doing that repeatedly in meditations until the old feelings connected with the memories dissolved and were transformed. So when I'm reminded of it was like an older brother to me, so that I never had. So it felt like I'd lost a family member. Plus I still owed him some money, and there was some underlying issues between us. And so it was really impactful at the time, negatively. So being able to now remember him with happiness, almost with positive energies, is just amazing. Because now I'm happy to remember him, whereas before I didn't want to remember him, which was a double layer of pain.
Yes, I can imagine. You sort of like feel guilty for not remembering, yet when you do, it's like a sort of vicious circle. And it's interesting when you said you didn't know what was wrong at first. And I think we can all relate to that. Sometimes the mood can come and you're not sure why, but to actually take time to examine. It would be nice you mentioned a bit about this process of looking at it rationally and logically. Would you like to say a little bit more about that process?
Yeah. So I've got this thing that I've developed since then. Like prior to this personal experience in 2017, I kept saying to my wife, because I do a lot of teaching and work and in helping people on their own paths, and I kept saying to her, I keep getting stuck when death comes up, when loss comes up. And it was then, and I realise now it's because I was stuck in dealing with a death and a loss. So I knew going through this practical process, I've helped many, many people since. I helped a woman who, for 15 years, when she remembered her son, had to lock herself away in a dark room for 3 days because of the pain of it. And after half an hour, she was able to remember of talking with me. She was able to remember her son with happiness, just through this paradigm kind of shift. So what I call it is the want formula, because it's actually all sorrow is an unfulfilled desire. So I had to identify what is my desire regarding this situation. So I would ask myself, well, what do you want? Well, I want him back. Right, okay, well, that ain't going to happen, is it? So what else do you want? Well, I want him back, and I want to rewind time to the moment, the week before he was murdered, on my doorstep, when he asks for help. I'm then able to help him with all the 23 years of knowledge and understanding that I now possess, in the hope it's going to divert his thoughts and actions so he ends up in a totally different direction. Well, how realistic is that? How possible is that? Yeah. I know in the old Superman film, he flew backwards, didn't he, to save Lois Lane? And it was almost like I had this desire that I wanted to do something similar. So once I understood that that was my desire, I was then able to repeatedly, it didn't happen at once, but repeatedly in my meditations, and when I decided to explore it, walk in and sit in, and whenever it came up, I just keep saying to myself, well, it's unrealistic, mate. Yeah, this cannot happen. You're creating a desire that's leading to unhappiness that can never, ever be fulfilled. And I think once I really got my head around that, that was the acceptance. And I think this is the key. I have to accept, because anything that we accept, we become uninfluenced by. Then I can start to do the work on it. Then I can start to, so I started to use, I then knew that I had to reprogram the memories that were linked to my friend. So then I practiced like, well, I was such a young man. I didn't know what I know now. It's not my fault. Like, I didn't know. It's kind of this, so forgiving myself. Then it was, well, he wanted to die. He wanted to die young. We used to joke about it and stuff. Yeah. When I hit my 21st birthday, I couldn't believe I was still alive with the situations I used to get myself into. And the aim was to try and be dead before 21. That's what we used to joke about. That's how we lived our lives. We were mad. And it was almost like, well, he got his wish. And also, if you, because he got murdered, he went to do a drug deal and they took the money off him and then they killed him and dumped him in a ditch. And it was like, well, if you live by the sword, then you die by the sword. If you're going to be in this world, then, and there's the other saying, like, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, yeah, kind of thing. So it's with these multiple angles and ways I was able to dilute the current thoughts and feelings that were connected with the event, dissolve them, and then create these new ones that I'm now able to sit in front of you and everyone else that's going to watch this and not get upset by talking about it. And that's the proof. That's the proof of the pudding, that I know the work that I've done has worked.
Yes, definitely. It's like something is healed when we can share it, and it becomes, in a way, a story, but it's a useful one for sharing with others to see this possibility of coming from a stable space. And I like this want formula. It's a very vivid one. We can kind of get the feeling of, do I want something from this situation? Or it could be in the present from a person, but the option to challenge that thinking and come from a space of a premise where I don't need that at this point. I can come from a fullness. Of course, spirituality brings us into that space. Would you like to say, just finally, in essence, is this something that can help us with everyday things? Of course, this story shows the power of this method, but what about something like procrastination? It's like a sort of lingering feeling of not being able to move forward. Would it help?
Yeah, totally. Because in that procrastination, you're creating a desire over and over and over and over again that's preventing you from taking action. For procrastination itself, the quickest tip I can give you is do something. Stop thinking about it and just go and do something. Action destroys procrastination. Yeah. The one formula, by understanding that all of my sorrow, and sometimes people don't quite like this, or it takes them a while to really harness this and understand it. But all of your sorrow is an unfulfilled desire. Once you really understand that and start to accept that, you actually then become powerful. Because if you think it is because of circumstance or somebody else, you're then the victim, you're then powerless. But once you accept and then start to learn from it, see the benefits within it, then it's like you're thinking, it's like you change the rudder of your ship. You're going this way and now you totally go this way. And both paths can have pain on them. Yeah, but one is you're doing something about it, the other one is you're still being affected by it. But yeah, this works with everything. We have a choice. You're either having positive thoughts or negative thoughts. You have a choice what you can create now. has to be explored is the collection of negative thoughts you've already got stored. But then that's where meditation comes in, and spiritual knowledge and doing the work. But yeah, it can work on every practical level.
And finally, we pay a visit to Cambridge. Gandhi said, "Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony." Oscar Wilde said, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken." However, is it easy to be true to oneself? Unless we really know and cherish the treasure of our truth, we can easily find ourselves dancing to the tune of others, or looking to please and receive approval from our peers and society. We meet Ioana Gurga, now based in Cambridge, originally from Romania. Ioana had been on a search for truth for many years. With a background in computer science and psychology, and with an inquiring mind and an attitude of lifelong learning, she came upon a truth that resonated deeply while studying Raj Yoga. She found that by reconnecting to her authentic self, she could begin to reveal and experience her conscience. This resulted in her mind becoming much happier and more contented. Ioana enjoys sharing her truth with others through the example of her everyday life. She continues to deepen her understanding of this fascinating subject of rediscovering the treasure of authentic living.
What was at the beginning was this power of peace. And peace, it is not when you try to empty your mind and you don't have any thoughts. Peace is more about learning to observe the self. And when you do that, you can see the patterns of thinking, you can see the emotions. And peace, it is possible when you are able to rule your mind. That really resonated with me. And we sometimes use the image of a king in Raja Yoga. And a king can have peace, but a limited king may still find himself sometimes in peacelessness, because he can lose something or he can win something. When you understand that the inner being is a king of the unlimited treasures, inner treasures, then there is nothing to lose ever again. So I really found peace through Raja Yoga.
It reminds me of what we shared earlier about the want method and this king. It sounds like when we are able to not experience anything of potential of something to lose or something to want, what is it that is the essence of the understanding that helps you when you say self? What is that self? Because for many of us, observing the self would be the idea around our external identity, but it would be nice to hear your understanding of this inner sovereign self.
People usually associate themselves with name, with position, with career, and that will give rise to temporary identities. You learn that these temporary identities are not worth more than a little penny, because they are really old, and they can be lost anytime. They will definitely end today or tomorrow. And exactly who do we think we are? Do people really know who they truly are? So discovering the spiritual identity, that would be the hint towards the real self, the true self. And truth is incognito. Truth doesn't have an image associated with it. That's why sometimes people may not even start the journey. And truth is also hindered by the innumerable opinions of others. if we listen to what others are saying, we may not continue on our journey. And also there can be many complications of our business, our work, what we do. So to be able to start this journey and to understand who you truly are, to understand that true self, that spiritual identity, it's almost like a process of planting a seed. And the seed is a spiritual identity. And when I plant a seed, I take care of it and nourish it and nurture the sapling. And if the seed is true, then the tree will give fruit. And this is an image for the inner journey to discover this real self.
Yes, this feeling that when, for example, in our work, we might define ourselves by that role, but the world is so unpredictable now that we can easily lose our position, or someone else can get promoted and we get a sense of defeat. So it's like an emotional roller coaster, and not to mention relationships. So this feels very grounding. Would be interesting, have you experienced any obstacles in this? Because in a way, no one can stop us from this introspection. But what is your, have you had any kind of challenges? And if so, how have you overcome them?
Overall, it is easy. It is easy if you remain honest to your true self. And you can ask yourself, am I truthful to the real self? Or am I trying to create an image for others to see? And people in the world would tell lies, and everyone can go through that to defend their honor. But when you tell a lie, and that can lead to an obstacle, when you tell a lie, you have to tell another lie to cover the previous one. And people are living in lies or obstacles because they feel they will lose something. Maybe I'm going to lose some customers if I'm telling the truth. But there is a say that, yes, if you tell the truth, if you are honest, you may look foolish in the eyes of the people, but you will be close to the heart of God. So I would say honesty and truthfulness will remove any obstacles. Eventually, truth will prevail, and maybe others that have not recognized it yet, they will recognize it when you are determined with your truth.
Yes, very nice and so clear. And we have this slogan, fake it to make it. So it's like we just potentially get better at the faking. And this came a bit earlier, I think, with we can work on the facade, but we are just getting more and more distance from our true self. What is your way of sharing with others? I know that this is something that is very important for yourself. And what is it that you'd like to do to share this truth and help others to do the same?
Yes, we do share in Raja Yoga about our spiritual identity, about God, about the law of action, about time and space. And everything we want to share, we want to do it accurately. So I would say the most important factor is having this accurate spiritual knowledge and having accurate meditation. And to be accurate means to be uninfluenced. When we are influenced by other people, by atmosphere, by the environment, then we are not able to share anything with others. What we are sharing is going to be waste. But when I'm able to be impressed only with original qualities of the spiritual being, and we can also say be impressed with God, and whatever you will share will be very useful to the others.
So to make this journey easy, we would like to invite our panelists to share their journey and also a little bit about some tips for how to make it a smooth process. What is one myth that you would like to bust on this journey of inner discovery? So, for example, about thoughts. In some meditations, it is said that we need to remove thoughts or somehow clear the mind. Would anyone like to pick that up? What is it that we are actually doing with our thoughts on this journey?
What I love about this meditation, my mum introduced me to this meditation, and initially I was very resistant. Yeah, I don't want to escape. Like, I used to use other things for escapism at the time, I really wasn't interested in it. But once I understood that it was a knowledge-based and thought-based meditation, that is what got me hooked. Because it wasn't about emptying the mind, it's about filling the mind. And as was touched on earlier, it's thoughts create feelings, create experience. So if I can learn to slow my current thinking down, create new thought to lead me into whatever experience I choose, that is like just amazing. So why would I not want to think? If anything, I want to think, but it's understanding that the thought is the spark, because after the spark, it leads you into the experience, and then it's mastering the experience. So you start with thought, but as you get really good at it, you can move into the experience without thought, if that kind of makes sense. And that might be a bit contradictory, but it's like I need the thought to guide me, to send me in the direction that I want to go. But then the aim is to experience the thought, because we know that thoughts are just the seed. They're not the whole plant. They're not the flower, the leaves. That's the experience of the thought, which comes with the practice.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I quite agree with what Neil has just mentioned. I think it's not about emptying, and that's one thing. A lot of myths about meditation, which I also discovered initially in my journey, was that a lot of people try and practice that zeroness, that zero thought level. And I always thought that even if you achieve that, you only achieve it for a few seconds. Then what happens after that? How do you carry your peace, the power that you've created in that moment, all the way through to your life, into your office, into your home, into all the things you're doing, and how do you prevent all the negative stuff to come back again? So I saw, this meditation when I started, that's what I think I started discovering, was that once we start going on that journey of thought and sort of creating the right thoughts and filling ourselves with all the qualities, like I think it was mentioned by Luana, that's what sustains me for my whole day and my whole life. And I discovered that I think that is the essence or the power of meditation, essentially.
I think thoughts can become your self-mastery. And I agree with you, Pankaj, that when you try to go into that nothingness, even though you might be able to hold it for a very short time, thoughts come in eventually. And what those thoughts show you, if you are just sitting and observing that, is the very things that you're attached to. So when the thoughts come in meditation, they are a message to you as to what you need to let go of or deal with. If we're worried about something, that's what comes in, isn't it? It's the thing that we're worried about. And in seconds, you've extrapolated it into this enormous thing. And you think, how on earth did I start thinking about this when I was trying to meditate? But when we understand how we can use thoughts, that we are the master of our thoughts and they are totally within our control, then we start to use thinking to get where we want to, not just in everyday life, but in meditation as well. So we can have empowering thoughts of who I am as a spiritual being. Or we can have weak thoughts of, oh, I'm no good. But it's totally our choice. So we can practice this in everyday life, or we can practice this in meditation, and we grow as a result.
And I would like to ask a question. There is this model that we are familiar with, which is before we can search for truth, then we need to, first of all, get very basic things right in our lives. So we're familiar with Maslow's triangle, the hierarchy of needs, that we first need to get the stable job, stable relationships or connections in our lives. And then we can start on the spiritual side. And I'd like to ask you, Anna, is this something that I should be looking for before I go into this introspection, search for truth? Do I need to get other things in place first?
Yes, the one that is searching for truth cannot stop searching for truth. Where is the truth? When am I going to find it? And that is something that we all can see in our lives, in the journeys that you have described, were unstoppable. And when I see this truth as being related to our original nature, to the being that we are, and we want to know about that being. What is the name of the being, the form, the land, where does it belong to, how does it come here, what is happening in the journey of this being. Everything here is just as interesting as anything else. And what we start with this study that you have described, the spiritual knowledge. And this spiritual knowledge comes when human beings are as if in a labyrinth. When you are in a labyrinth, you can experience the confusion, the darkness, the sorrow. And spiritual knowledge is a medicine. Spiritual knowledge acts like an aeroplane that takes you out of that labyrinth. And when you are out of that labyrinth, you can realize your highest potential, you can realize your qualities, and your reality becomes one full of all treasures. You can look after your body, you can look after all your needs, you can look after friends and job. As long as you are out of confusion, out of darkness, everything will become easy. So, yeah.
I like this analogy of being out of the labyrinth, and the mind is clearer to experience security from within, and reminds me of this image that we do need the job and shelter in practical life, but we are also still breathing at the same time. So we don't stop breathing whilst we need to do those things, so that they go in parallel. So it sounds like you were saying the one who's searching for truth will continue. That's in parallel, and it's a bit like a breath for the soul, which will empower us, I'm sure, to do better, also to get the right job and stable external world, but they can go on. So I think it's very helpful to bust this myth that we have to somehow wait for the outside to be right. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to this.
Maybe the myth that, just to add, the other myth that we would like to remove from our minds is that we can be harmed or we can be hurt by anything or anyone. This being of light, this spirit that we are exploring and understanding, is immortal. And with the power of truth, we become fearless. All that thoughts that my wealth is not good, my body is sick, and I can't understand this, and I can't make it. All of that, with this power of the true self, we remove these weaknesses immediately, and we realize our highest potential. So be fearless, and also with the power of happiness and true love, remove attachments. When attachments are removed, you will not be deceived in this journey.
Something to reflect on. Very deep. Attachments create deception, and we think we're getting security, but it's something temporary if it's from the external, which can change. Would Neil like to add something at this point?
Yeah, just related to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because and I use that diagram a lot in my work with clients, so they can understand where they're at and what we need to be looking at. But I also think there needs to be layers like below the base, almost like like the iceberg, like what's going on under the surface. Because I know I was kind of on the streets 15, 16, so my life was very, very chaotic. But as I reflect over my personal journey, that period was very, very important. And I suppose that I feel it's similar to like the ploughing of the land before the seed is sown. And it's almost like I needed the chaos to start to dilute my reliance on the physical, because there were moments where I had nothing and no one. And I think when you hit those dark points is actually when you're more likely to be open to other ways of thinking and other ways of doing. And I think that period was really, really important for my spiritual development. And I'd love to say that I've got all the layers of Maslow's hierarchy in place so I can self-actualize. But I'm a business owner, and I'm sure most business owners can concur. You're always in flux. You haven't got the stability of a job, so everything's chaotic nearly all the time. And I think it's through those challenges that makes me stronger, that makes me really find out my qualities and you have to be challenged to find your goodness. The problem is well, there's something out there at the moment about making your life easier all the time. And if like a child gets their way all the time, they become spoiled. Well, it's no different for adults. If adults get their way all the time, they become spoiled. It's actually through the challenges that we grow, we develop, we find out who we really are and what our qualities are. So I'd rather have that path any day of the week.
Yes, and that leads me to a really nice quote or two from Bill from Chelmsford. He's sharing about his journey, and he himself was in a downward spiral of drugs and alcohol, and he got to rock bottom in his own words. So then he sought help from rehab center, but also that included a program of meditation, and it was also with Brahma Kumaris. So he was sharing that it brought him stability on his road to recovery. Took him away from chaotic thinking and helped bring his life into perspective. One more myth that if anyone would like to pick up on, that we may need to meditate for a long time. We have to sit in meditation, and that it's some hard effort. Would anyone like to pick up on that? Is it something we do need to do?
It's coming back to the image of the true self, and we use sometimes the image of a diamond, and there can be a real diamond, or there can be a diamond that has some flaw in it. And when we are in the awareness of the real self, the awareness of our qualities of peace, love, truth, happiness, then we are like real diamonds. When we start to be impressed with what is in the outer world, when we start to create desires or to want something, then we become diamonds that have flaws. And there are also artificial diamonds, there are also artificial jewelry that are worth so much less compared to real jewelry. So I can ask myself, and that is a meditation, that is truly realizing my highest potential. What kind of diamond am I? Am I a real diamond? Am I a diamond with flaws, an artificial diamond? Or is my life still in that arrogance of the body appearance, arrogance of the name, of the position? And then life is worth just a penny. And the change from feeling that I worth just a penny to feeling that I worth a real diamond is in a second. So with this Raja Yoga meditation, we can change that, and our feelings are changing, our vision is changing, our attitude is changing, and that is for us meditation.
So to close, I'm going to ask each of you to share if there's one take-home tip that you would like to give to somebody who's a budding traveler of inner discovery, or someone who's already starting on their journey.
Okay, my tip would be take action. Yeah, because too many people want to collect information and knowledge, and it's like you get loads of nice little one-liner statements on social media, and people go, "Oh, that's nice, that's good," but then they never do anything with it. And I think the key is take little bits of information and learn how to practically bring it into your life. Don't stop reading loads of books and listening to loads of stuff and just filling your head. You're better off taking one little nugget and really bringing that into practicality. Then take the next one, and then take the next one. That would be my recommendation. Small steps.
I'm with Neil on that. I think, just keep practicing and keep going, because you'll always get setbacks. You'll always think, oh, this is too difficult, I can't control my thoughts, and all these sort of things. But what you don't realize is every second of every moment you are actually changing. And you may not notice it yourself, but others will notice it. And somebody said to me just yesterday, "You've changed so much recently." And I thought, have I? And I couldn't think how I'd changed, but that person has seen changes in me. So just keep going.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll say is start with yourself and trust yourself, because my journey is, the first word I learned is acceptance, and in my spiritual journey. So I would say start with yourself, and don't worry about it. Like like Sister just mentioned, it's another thing, but it'll automatically happen, just natural. Just work on yourself rather than somebody else. Then that's easier journey.
It's very deep what you've highlighted, because the mind is so often wanting to change the situation of a person, but to remember it's the perspective which we're coming from, and we have a choice. We always have freedom. So start with yourself. And finally, let's hear from Joanna.
Yes, to add to what was said, acceptance can add 3 more A's. And one A is for action. Take the action that will make you pure. And by purity, I mean uninfluenced, when you're not influenced or impressed by anything that is outside. And then A for attitude, and have an attitude of mercy towards yourself, and mercy towards nature, environment, all the other human beings. And finally, the piece of advice would be, do not waste time. Time is extremely precious now. Be fearless in your journey towards discovering your true self, and remain alert in this journey. Spiritual alertness, if even one soul remains alert, there will be a lot of safety for everyone around them.
So I hope that you have got some inspiration to continue or begin or to deepen your own inner journey of discovery. We will now close with a poem for reflection from Romford.